Hello and welcome back to Green Hill Gaming, where I share my passion of video games with the whole wide world. We are all facing the second great video game crash. Don't bury your heads in the sand and deny it. It's here. It's happening. And Nintendo saw it happening many years ago, as far back as 2004. Some people watching this video right now, whether you agree or disagree with me about the second great video game crash happening, were not even born in 2004. That's how long ago Nintendo saw this second great video game crash. So sit back, relax, but as always, and more importantly, enjoy the video. And please let me know in the comment section below what you think of everything I have said in this video. I would love to hear from you. Now we're playing with power used to be Nintendo's slogan up until the release of the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the Nintendo 64 and the Nintendo GameCube were the most powerful console on the market at that time. More powerful than the Sega Mega Drive, the Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1, even PlayStation 2. But something changed. Something changed in Tokyo, Japan. Something changed in Nintendo HQ. And they stepped back and they said, no, I'm not walking down that path anymore, no. And Nintendo stepped away from power. And they allowed Sony and Microsoft to essentially have the ring to themselves, the wrestling ring to themselves. And Nintendo allowed Sony and Microsoft to battle it out in the spec wars, the console wars, the spec race. And we saw that. I mean, clearly, Nintendo were no longer competing in the spec wars with the Nintendo Wii onwards. And I truly believe that the biggest reason for that, because let's face it, there's various reasons why Nintendo decided not to focus on power anymore. But I believe now more than ever, when I look at the state of the gaming industry, the main reason is because Nintendo saw the second great video game crash happening. They knew that powerful hardware and super realistic cinematic video games were going to be unsustainable. And I will read a quote from the late great Satoru Iwata in just a moment. And you can let me know what you think of that in the comment section below, because I find his quote very interesting, and I am convinced that he, as well as Nintendo, saw this second great video game crash happening many, many years ago. But let me just remind you of the state of the gaming industry in 2024. We have games that are releasing broken, literally broken, at full price. Slightly below that terrible level of game development. We have games that have bugs, glitches that require day one patches, and a patch that will release a week or two later, a month later, sometimes even a year later, just to ensure that the game is of quality. We have fully priced games that are riddled with microtransactions. We're paying 70, 80 euro for Tekken 8. We're even paying more to get the upcoming DLC and the premium versions of Tekken 8. If that game has microtransactions. We have Sony laying off 900 employees and closing down an entire studio. PlayStation London studio, who created the Getaway franchise. We know what EA laying off their staff. Look around you. It's already here. It's not happening, it's happened. The great second video game crash is here. Don't bury your heads in the sand and act like everything is okay, because it's not okay. Look at how long it takes for big franchises to get a sequel. Look at Grand Theft Auto. Look at Grand Theft Auto. The video game industry has become unsustainable. Okay? And that's the biggest cause of the great second video game crash that we're currently living through right now. It is costing more and more money to create consoles each generation. It is costing more and more money to create software, video games, with each generation. Because with each generation, consoles are more beefier, they have more specs than the previous console. Video games are getting bigger, massive open worlds, super realistic visuals, cinematic movie-like experiences. All of that costs a lot of money. And the companies who create these high-end modern consoles, Microsoft and Sony, the reality is no matter how well their consoles sell, they're not going to make a return on the amount of money they invested in creating their hardware and software. And software, so it's the same with software as well. That is why, no matter how well Tekken 8 might sell, the developers need to include microtransactions to get back some of the money that they pumped into the development of Tekken 8. Money doesn't grow on trees, people. It's costing a lot of money to create consoles and games in 2024. However, this doesn't seem to be affecting Nintendo the slightest. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that, Johnny? Why is Nintendo currently the richest company in Japan right now? It's because they saw this coming back in 2004. They knew that going down the road of power, they knew that continuing to play with power would become at some stage unsustainable. It would cost more and more money for all of the specs that go into these powerful hardware. Nintendo knew that would cost a lot of money and that eventually it would become unsustainable. That is why the Nintendo Wii was standard definition. That is why their hardware was significantly inferior to PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Same with the Wii U, and the same with the Switch. But hey, it must have worked because the Wii and the Nintendo Switch are two of the highest selling consoles, not just in Nintendo, but in the entire gaming industry. And as I mentioned, right now Nintendo are the richest company in Japan. So you can love or hate Nintendo's hardware and software, but there's no denying it sells. And Nintendo are not laying off any of their staff, and they're hardly in a financial crisis because they are the richest company in Japan. Nintendo is a Japanese company, so is Sony. It doesn't matter what regions PlayStation is popular in, it doesn't change the fact that the ultimate employer is in Japan. Sony is a Japanese company. Everything comes back to Japan when it comes to Sony. Of course, Microsoft is an American company. Now I'm going to read a quote from the late great Satoru Iwata. This was from the year of 2004. It was Nintendo's pre-E3 2024 press conference, and he's talking about what was originally called, codenamed Nintendo Revolution, that would eventually become the Nintendo Wii, the first console where Nintendo were no longer playing with power. So he quotes, "Different also defines our approach to our next home system. It won't simply be new or include new technologies. Better technology is good, but not enough. Today's consoles already offer fairly realistic experiences, so simply beefing up the graphics will not let most of us see a difference. So what should a new machine do? Much more. An unprecedented, I can't say that word, I can't say the word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Gameplay experience. Something no other machine has delivered before. The definition of a new machine must be different. I want you to know that Nintendo is working on our next system, and that system will create a gaming revolution. Internal development is underway." It's crazy to hear that was back in 2004, and was he fucking right? Was he fucking right? The Nintendo Wii literally changed gaming overnight. Oh my days. I mean, companies are still using motion control to this day. The controller I'm holding in my hand right now, the amazing PS5 DualSense controller, has motion control in it. And then he goes on, "I could give you our technical specs, as I know you'd like that. But I won't, for a simple reason. They really don't matter. The time when horsepower alone made all the difference is over. Work on Revolution is well underway. When you see it, you will be excited because you will experience a gaming revolution." Man, he was so confident with the Nintendo Wii, man, and rightfully so. Rightfully so was he confident. I want to know what you think of that. You can look at what he says in a number of ways, but I think ultimately, I think when it's all said and done, he was looking ahead. He was looking ahead. And he realized that technical specs alone is just not something that we can continue to do in the end. Okay? Look, we all interpret things differently, okay? That is my interpretation. My interpretation of what he said is he realized that pumping out these beefy consoles will eventually become unsustainable. And was he wrong? No, he wasn't. Do you think that Nintendo, seeing as the richest company in Japan right now, do you think that they can't release massively powerful hardware and super realistic games? Of course they can. What's stopping them? They're the richest company in Japan. Do they want to? No. Because they know it's unsustainable. But what is sustainable is creating something different. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg to do so. The Nintendo Switch uses a 2015 chip, an NVIDIA mobile chip. The Nintendo Switch is essentially a handheld. It's a tablet. But look at the kind of games that are running on Nintendo Switch. On a handheld. Look at the kind of games that Nintendo can create on Switch. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, massive open world games, engaging, fun gameplay on the tablet with a 2015 chip. So it obviously didn't cost Nintendo a lot of money to create the Nintendo Switch. But it's obviously costed Sony a lot of money and Microsoft a lot of money to create their PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. Like, the reason why Microsoft are pumping out Game Pass and publishing their games on other consoles is because they know their hardware isn't even selling, let alone making their money back on it. Sony's consoles sell, but they're not making back their money that they invested in. So the thing is, there's a difference between, you might look at sales of PS5 and say, oh my god, PS5 has sold fucking 40, 50 million. Oh my god, that's great. That must mean Sony are rich. And no, because the price you pay for the console is a fraction to what they actually pumped into making it. That's common sense, people. So even though PS5 sells well, Sony are still not making back their money. The same with Microsoft. See, Microsoft are kind of handling it a bit differently. They know this, so that's why they're pumping out Game Pass and publishing their games on other platforms. You can literally have a Samsung TV and have Game Pass on it. The money is still going to Xbox, to Microsoft at the end of the day. And obviously Nintendo, as I mentioned, they don't player power anymore, so it just completely doesn't affect them. It's just not something that bothers Nintendo. They're sitting number one right now in Japan as the richest company in that nation. But I just think it's crazy that Nintendo saw this coming as far back as 2004. I mentioned earlier, some of my viewers probably weren't even alive back then. And that's when Nintendo were looking into the future and seeing this. Now again, I mentioned at the start of this video, there's various reasons why Nintendo decided no longer to play with power. And one of those reasons is probably how you could interpret what is said in 2004, and that's because they wanted to do something different. They wanted to offer something different that gamers haven't seen before. That's one way you could look at it, and I completely agree with that. But I think considering Nintendo are not laying off their staff, In fact, a really nice story actually. When the Nintendo 3DS launched, it didn't get off to a good start, okay? And Nintendo were pretty much kind of in a bad place business-wise during that time. How did Iwata respond? I'll tell you how Iwata responded. He took a 50% pay cut. And the executives at Nintendo took similar pay cuts as well, to ensure the financial stability of their company, to ensure that Nintendo continued to succeed. And oh, look at Nintendo, the richest company in Japan. So I would reckon that even if Nintendo weren't the richest company in Japan, I would reckon that if Nintendo were struggling financially right now, they would do something similar. That's just a nice story that I wanted to share when it comes to all these layoffs. You know, you don't see Nintendo laying off any staff because they don't need to. And it is so ironic, really, so hilariously ironic, that Sony and Microsoft's biggest strength has now become their biggest weakness. You know, for years, Sony and Microsoft and their fanboys would beat their chest and say, "We are the most powerful gaming companies. Ha ha ha, look at you, Nintendo down there. Lick my boots, you inferior motherfuckers." That was the case for years. You know, like PlayStation would pump out, you know, these beefy consoles, so would Microsoft. Sony would pump out these cinematic, you know, ultra realistic games, you know, like the Uncharted series, the Last of Us series, you know, most recently God of War, Spider-Man, you know. And I mean, yeah, Sony would beat their chest, Microsoft would beat their chest, their fanboys would love it, and Nintendo fanboys would always kind of like, you know, have to kind of suck it up, like, you know, because Nintendo were laughed at, looked down on. No, look at your inferior hardware, ha ha ha, who wants to buy that? You know, who wants to buy Nintendo games, ha 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 ha. Well, like, ha 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 is now aimed at Sony and Microsoft, because Microsoft have resorted to Game Pass and publishing their games on other platforms, and Sony had no choice but to lay off 900 of their staff and close down studios and say that the PS5 is at the end of its life cycle. Whereas Nintendo Switch is on the market fucking 7 years, is it? 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 7 years and still going strong, sales-wise. I mean, sales are everything. Money is everything. Nintendo's the richest company in Japan. Switch is one of the highest selling consoles of all time. So it's kind of ironic, really, that Sony and Microsoft's strength have now become their biggest weakness, and Nintendo's biggest weakness have now become their biggest strength. At the end of the day, people, it's all about money. You know, sometimes we hate that, sometimes we like that, sometimes we don't care about that, but it does come down to money. If it's becoming financially unsustainable for Sony to compete in the console industry, as far as like releasing new hardware and new games, and if Microsoft had to resort to Game Pass and no longer focus on their hardware, and their software no longer becomes exclusive because they're publishing their games now on other platforms, what does that leave the industry? And who's left? Well, the punchline. Nintendo, the company that for years were laughed at and looked down at, the company that saw this coming as far back as 2004, standing tall as the richest company in Japan. And how fitting they're releasing a console next year. So with all this going on, all this uncertainty going on, you know, layoffs, game delays, Nintendo releases a new console, you know, maybe people's mindsets will change. Who knows? But I'm convinced that Nintendo saw this coming, and I just wanted to see this coming, or I just wanted to make this video. I know I'm going to be accused as being a Nintendo fanboy, I don't really give a shit, to be quite honest with you. You know, I'd rather be called a Nintendo fanboy than have my head buried in the sand and ignoring the very evident great video game crash, second great video game crash that's occurring around me. So yeah. So listen, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Look, do you think there's a second video game crash happening right now? You know? Because your input is important. I like dialogue. I like debate. I like to go back and forth. You know, I actually made a stream there the other day talking about how boring invasions in Mortal Kombat 1 has become. Well, everyone is agreeing with me. Nobody has disagreed so far, but I'm kind of getting a lot of comments actually on that. I wasn't expecting it. But that's kind of, I like that. I like responding to my viewers. I like engaging with them and hearing what they have to say on the matter. And you know, it's the most important part of a video like this for me, to be quite honest with you. I mean, if I'm just streaming Metal Gear Solid, you know, it's just me streaming the game. You can watch or you can not watch and whatever. But when I'm discussing something, it's very important for me to actually get feedback and to hear what the people think, you know, because this is my views, these are my opinions. You could, that article that I read, that quote that I read from Iwata, I'm guessing 5 different people could have 5 different views on that. This is me. I'm just looking at the gaming industry now, and I'm thinking back to what Iwata said back then, and I'm putting the two together. I'm fully convinced that Iwata saw this happening, that he knew that he had to change gears, that he had to move his company in a different direction, and he knew that innovation was going to be Nintendo's, you know, strength, and that it wasn't going to cost a lot of money for Nintendo to, you know, create this technology. Whereas like Sony and Microsoft, they were going down the HD route, and they were going down the online route, and they were going down, you know, now we're in 4K and, you know, beefy specs and, you know, realistic graphics and different engines and, you know, physics engines and everything else in between. And I reckon that Nintendo realized that would become very expensive for them and eventually very unsustainable for them. And I reckon that's why Nintendo decided to go in the direction that they're still going in. So yeah, I think I've said my piece now. I'd love to hear what you think. But don't hold back. Don't hold back. If you're sitting down, standing, lying, shitting, whatever you're doing right now, if you're watching this video, if you're hearing my very annoying voice and you're saying, oh my god, Johnny, I hate you so fucking much, you're a fucking Nintendo fanboy, I want you to fucking die, let me know. I'm deadly serious. Just talk to me. I want to hear from you. Talk to me. Tell me how you feel about me. Tell me how you feel about what I'm saying. Just go all out. I want to hear from you. And I mean, don't just say, yeah, Johnny, I agree with you. You know, just say I agree with you because, or I don't disagree with, I don't agree with you because. I just love dialogue. That's the kind of person I am. I just like to have a conversation with people on things. You know, whether I don't care if it gets heated. I don't care if it gets heated. You know, I really don't. I just want people to talk about it because it's important to talk about this. You know, this is an important topic. You know, and whether you fully agree or fully disagree, like you can't change the reality. There is something happening in the gaming industry. It's definitely not the same industry that it once was. Even if you're fucking 15 watching this, I'm sure you can remember when you were 10, you know, the industry being slightly different than what it is now. You know, this doesn't have to be a millennium thing, you know, where like, oh, back in my days in the 90s, I'd pop my disc into the console and I'd play my game from start to finish. Like, even if you grew up like on the fucking PS3 generation, you can remember games regularly releasing. No, they're not. You know? So no matter what generation of gamer you are, you really can't deny the fact that the industry has changed. Okay, I'm gonna have to do a workout now. I'll flex my muscles. Nah, I'm only joking. It's more of a, what's the word for it? Aerobic kind of workout, really. Anything else? If I had muscles, I'd fucking scare myself, to be honest. But thanks for watching this video. And again, let me know in the comment section below what you think. Thank you.